all understand that this is an important issue for the township. However, I would remind everyone that outbursts of any kind, disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. Anyone being disruptive during the hearing will be removed. Second, in accordance with the township's public participation policy and case law, we would normally provide 3 minutes for public comment. However, because of the nature of this proposal, we are extending the public comment period for 5 minutes for this hearing. That said, public comment will be limited to residents, taxpayers of Elizabeth Township or their authorized representatives. Being that there's a large group of people in attendance, I would ask that you try to not be repetitive with your comments. If somebody else has said it, you do not have to explain the same point again. We would appreciate brevity. If you have a group of people who could designate one speaker to talk on their behalf, that would also be appreciated. Also, bear in mind that public comment is just that. This is your chance to comment on the proposal. It's not an opportunity to question or examine the commissioners, the engineers, the applicant, or anyone else. There is no obligation on behalf of the commissioners or the applicant or anyone else to answer or discuss anything. This hearing is legislative in nature. Therefore, in accordance with Section 609 of the MPC and the holding in Sharp versus Township of Radnor and other case law, this is not an evidentiary hearing. There will be no opportunity for the public to present witnesses or cross-examine the applicant. The applicant will have the right to make its presentation, then we will have public comment. We will then adjourn this public hearing. After that, there is a special meeting scheduled. There are 2 sign-up sheets in the back. One is for the public comment for the public hearing. One is for the public comment for the special meeting. If you would like to comment on both, please sign up on both sheets. Okay, with that being said, it should be noted that this public hearing has been properly advertised in accordance with the requirements of the MPC. The property has also been posted. Additionally, notices were also mailed to all homeowners within 300 feet of the property line. At this time, I would ask the applicant, Invenergy Center, LLC, to proceed with its presentation. Mr. Siddick.
Thank you, Mr. Rakunas. Does the board prefer where we present? Is it fine to sit or you want us to stand? Any preference?
I'll leave it up to you, Mr. Siddick.
So if this is okay, we'll proceed with the microphone just sitting there. Thank you, Board of Commissioners, for scheduling this hearing. We have no legal right to it, so we appreciate you taking your time and hearing this out. What we want to emphasize is what Mr. Rakunas indicated is absolutely correct. This is a matter of significance for the township. We all understand that. That doesn't mean it's complex at this stage. It is not. It's straightforward from a zoning standpoint. We're looking to rezone the property. And the subject property that AEC is purchasing is actually about 210 acres. Of that amount, there's a little over 146 acres that's part of the rezoning request. The balance of that will be left as is. So, Mr. Rakunas, if you would indulge me a little bit, I would like to make sure that we have all of the notice information in the record. I realize there were published notices. I think there were 8 certifications on publications and notices for each of the ordinances. There were 2, and there are 2 that follow.
I believe that's accurate, but we will put in the record. Mr. Snelson, can you go over? Yeah. Can you go over what the notices were?
Yes, I have the affidavit of publications from the Mon Valley Independent for all of the legal notices that were published on December 3rd, 4th, and 10th, and including a correction noting the location of the meeting. And also I have a certified mail receipts from the United States Post Office with the properties in question for the rezoning have received all the notifications by certified mail and never signed.
Any other information that you need, Mr. Siddick?
Just we sent over to the township the names and addresses of homeowners within 350 feet. I understand Mr. Snelson went beyond that.
Yes, we sent out notices to every property owner within 350 feet with the list you gave us. We also included all the properties located in Smithdale, which includes all addresses on Smithdale Road, Forest Hills Road, Ocean Street, and Barber Street. Also received notices by first class mail.
I just want to know that those mail notices aren't required under the MPC. Even in the township ordinance, they're only required for the ZHB. But in the interest of having this shine as much as we can in the light of day, we want to make sure everything we're doing is out in the public and everybody has a chance to participate. The only thing I'd like to do, Mr. Rakunas, to finish that is, I left the packet for each board member and municipal official at the table. I'd like to just show what we also did in terms of posting the property. And Todd, if you could, if you look just direct in what's shown on the screen, we've shown the locations of the postings around the site on page 2 of the packet that I let out on public notice hearing key. And at each one of those, there was a notice. Some of those you'll see are even off the property that's being rezoned. It's still on the property that's being purchased, but we wanted to get as much public notice as we can. We realize the site is wooded. A lot of it is actually nonsensical to some point, but again, we want to err on showing more rather than less notice. One other housekeeping matter I wanted to mention. My client got a direct contact from a member of the community that's been active since I've been involved, and I've been before, about the standing of AEC. Allegheny Energy is the actual applicant here. I left it with the board. The purchase agreement was actually with Invenergy, and that was signed. AEC is a full subsidiary, so AEC is the equitable landowner under a purchase agreement with C Recycling. So in terms of notice and in terms of standing, I want to make sure we have those items covered from a procedural standpoint. If the commissioners have any questions at all, we want to eliminate that. And if we're okay there, I'd like to just proceed with the description of the site.
Thank you, Mr. City. One other issue. First of all, did any of the commissioners have any questions on the notice? Okay. One other matter of housekeeping. I did fail to mention that this ordinance has been previously submitted to the Allegheny County for review and comment, which they did provide. As well, it went through the Township Planning Commission, which has recommended adoption of the ordinance. So that's where that stands procedurally.
And understand, the county review letter is also there, I assume it's in the application file. I have copies of those if anyone's interested, the county review letter on this application.
It is, Mr. Sitting. In addition, I also received a letter from Kathy Fawcett, who's the chairman of the Planning Commission for the township. I'm going to try and find her letter. She issued a letter by email to me on December the 19th. I believe she submitted it to the township as well. I was copied on it. I'll read it and then we could admit that as well. It says, with the upcoming special meeting scheduled for Thursday, December 20th, 2018, and no minutes from the Planning Commission, I believe that a short report was in order. Back on Monday, July 2nd, 2018, there was a special meeting planned for Allegheny Energy Center to present a presentation on their reason for rezoning of the property named C Recycling. At the end of the meeting, we adjourned to have time to reflect on the information that was given to the members. At our next regular meeting, which was scheduled for Wednesday, July 18, 2018, a motion was presented as to whether the application for rezoning was in order to be given to the commissioners. A motion was granted and passed to continue to the next phase. I believe at this point, a report may have been written up by Mr. Rakunas and sent to the county for their response. This report was written by the chairman of the Planning Commission, Kathy T. Fawcett.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to proceed just to let the board and the audience know, the folks that are here with us today. I'm Bill Siddig. I'm counsel for AEC, the applicant. Next to me is Todd Sager. Todd is the engineer on the project with Benoni. Then next to Todd is Adam Taylor. Adam is the director of project development for Allegheny Energy and will basically be the individual responsible for the development of this project. And then next to me is Professor Joseph Sabino-Mystic of Duquesne Law School, who's going to speak generally about how the current use and zoning of the site impacts and is related to this application. And then next to Professor Mystic is Dan Ewing. Dan is the Vice President of Development for Invenergy. So they'll be available for commissioners, but basically I go through this package with Todd, and then Professor Mystic is going to speak, and then we'll be at the commissioner's beck and call as far as anything else that you want to know, that you are interested in. The history of the site, it's included in our application, but it's been an industrial site. We know primarily the site is currently zoned R1, and that's all well and good, but the actual use of the site for over 100 years has been industrial. It started in the late 1800s as the Youghiogheny River coal site, and it was known as the Ocean 5 mine for the first half of the 20th century. It then went to Pittsburgh Coal Company in the early 1900s, and it closed in 1954. As you'll see when Todd and I go through this, and a lot of this is gleaned from working with the people and listening to the people through the planning process. It's a culmination of getting there, but a lot of the comments were, the site's undermined. And yes, a lot of things are undermined in this part of Western Pennsylvania, but this was the epicenter. This is where all the activity took place. You'll see with the existing infrastructure and the residue that's there, it's not just that it's undermined. This is where the business occurred. This is where the coal that left the site and was loaded. So we'll go through it. A lot of those structures and remnants are still there. So it's a very, very heavy industrial site. It was then leased in the 70s after having been closed since 1954 to Crescent Coal Company. And then in the late 80s, the coal activity apparently stopped in the 80s, and then it was used by the Richatelli gray lines for storage of aggregate in the scrapyard and for old equipment. It's essentially the type of use it's been since to date. It was then, the bulk of this property was acquired by Triple C Recycling, who is the current record owner, in 95. The balance of it was acquired in 80. The remainder was acquired in 95, I believe. And Triple C's business is scrap materials, storage, and maintenance of trucks and equipment. And you'll see, that's a generous term. It's a description, but the actual utilization is a little more stark. What Invenergy AEC is proposing is a natural gas power plant. And one of the reasons that the site is ideal for that purpose is not only its heavy industrial nature, and the fact that it's buffered, as we'll see, and that is actually consistent with and very, very much fit in with the fabric of the town through all these years. But there's the infrastructure that is in place. So there's the gas transmission, electric transmission infrastructure that's nearby, which makes it just ideal for the power plant. Benefits, we've talked about that, questions have been raised. Just want to make it very clear, there is no community benefits agreement. The overall benefits are going to be, there's going to be 24 full-time employees. It's a $30 million just in wages estimated for 2 years for contractors of 300 skilled craftsmen. There's going to be real estate taxes, and AEC is going to have to do infrastructure improvements to roads and sewers. What we've committed to is this plant, like the Jessup plant in Lackawanna, there's a publicly disclosed host agreement. And we've committed to the township that that will serve as a template for it. This plant would be about 1/3 of that Lackawanna plant. So the numbers are basically out there, but this isn't any type of contract zone. There's no deal being made. This is the first step. We need to get the property, zoned properly, to be able to proceed. So that was one of the overall questions that were raised about the CBA. AEC and Invenergy have a history of being partners with their communities, and there's a track record, and we intend to do the same in Elizabeth Township. Another question that was raised through the course of the planning process is that our ordinance puts a restriction, as we'll see, of 10,000 feet between plants. And the question arose, can you put other plants in there? Well, our idea wasn't to exclude necessarily every other plant. We don't want to do special legislation for AEC, but we want to make sure there's separation. So we have basically a 2-mile separation. The practical reality is there aren't any other current I-1 sites in the township that would accommodate this facility as it's proposed. Essentially, the commissioners would have to say, yeah, we want one. From a practical standpoint, the grid won't handle a bigger plant that we're proposing at this site, so that naturally it wouldn't support another plant anywhere in the township either. So we think there are practical protections against that. And again, the commissioners can always expand that separation if they want. That's not a problem for us, but we wanted to do it in a way that wasn't exclusive to us. And the other thing that came up has to do with the missions. Those items, and I think we're going to hear a lot about that, those are really for another day. We're going to do land development plans, we have air permits, and we have a lot of DEP permits. I just want to make one overall statement, is that anything coming out of that stack will be water vapor. And there are statements, and even some of them made by representatives of AEC, that nothing's coming out of that stack. Well, whenever heat comes out of anything, and it's humid, and it's cold, there will be water vapor. But just so there's no, we don't want to, I always tell my developer clients, the people that oppose the plant can say anything and go out of bounds. We have to be very careful about being very specific and very accurate. So to the extent that there was any inaccuracy or that was misleading, that is the state of the situation with emissions. With that, I'd like to work with Todd and go through, and we'll try to do this fairly quickly. This is a zoning map. And this is the site, the southeast corner of the township. In fact, the subject property, the Triple C property, actually extends over into Rostraver. We're not doing anything beyond the county line, beyond the township line. Rostraver is not going to be touched. It's going to stay the way it is. This is the existing zoning map, and the site, and I don't know what you call these colors. I'm going to say greenish yellow. That's really the bulk of the site is R1, and a piece of the site is also R3. And we're proposing to take the piece that's along the river, closest to the river, really is going to stay R3, but the bulk of the site, 146 plus acres, is we're requesting to change to M1, light industrial. This is a survey of the property, as you can see, Smithdale, roadway and trail and the old railroad tracks, the river to the top. And this is the old mining map. And Todd, you might want to just jump in here and describe exactly how the site was used.
Yes, this is the old monument from 1988. It shows the red lines on here show the property lines. This map shows that, yes, it was all mined out underneath the property. However, this was the center of operations. There is, I want to use this term, there's a tunnel that stretches. This was the opening of the tunnel for the coal mine up in this corner. And it stretches, the map that this is taken from a huge map, and what my measurements, 2.5 miles back, this tunnel goes back, heading to the south. And this is the center of operations. All the coal was brought out of this location, and then they were staged on the site before it was loaded by a coal tipple in the northern part onto the railroad spur and taken to market here. So this just shows a small portion of all the coal that was mined from the site. Like I said, the map that I have stretches 2.5 miles to the south, and it's actually cut off, so I'm pretty sure that the mine actually went further than 2.5 miles there.
You'll see next will be a series of aerial photos. You can see, as Todd was indicating, this is sort of the epicenter of activity and extended, and has consistently extended along this spine, basically west to east, sort of diagonally across the site. And you can see the site is largely disturbed. One of the constants is apparently this, the northeastern part of the site has largely been undisturbed, and as you'll see, we don't intend to disturb it either. It's part of the county greenprint lands, as is this hillside, has largely been undisturbed, and it will be with us too. Again, we're looking at concentrating the activity in this area, which you'll see has historically been the area of activity on the site. You see 1949, that was, the first one was 39, 49 again, you can see all the activity on the site. 56, same thing, a lot of activity in the center of the site. That was about the time that the Ocean 5 mine stopped. So then 59, we'll see some overgrowth because the mining, there was an interlude of mining activity, so all this just verifies what was going on. That's 59. 67,
That same thing, mining's continued. I think there was a lapse there where Consolidated quit mining it, and then and they just picked up back in the 70s. You'll see here, it was kind of less quiet for a little bit. And then in the 70s, the new one picked up the property. You'll start to see activity right after the 73 to 77. You see a lot of activity where it was sold, and they picked up a lot of activity, including surface mining on the eastern side of the property. Surface mining here, and then they got a lot of disturbance here on the south side of the property where they were staging fill material that wasn't any good, spoil material for the site.
so this is basically the last vestiges of the mining, but it was an expansion of what had happened decades and decades before from the very end, taking out the last, stripping it out, as you'll see from the site photos we have tomorrow. Again, 83, this is now starting to see that it's going to be the scrapyard site and change over for mining. Again, this is now 88, we're starting to see Triple C taking over, and all these will reflect Triple C uses, 93, 2002, and 2006. Okay. And that's 2010, and you can see basically, and that's how the site has been used by Triple C Recycling.
Okay. So we're going to go through some site photos. I'm going to start on the northwest side of the site and walk you a kind of zigzag from the west side to south.
We're really going to start here, and Todd's going to walk up the entry road, and then go here, sort of left and right, up the road, left and right. Up here is a big center of activity, and then walk around where there's been some strip mining. So you'll see the whole series of photos of the current conditions.
So the first photo, photo one here, from that parcel, is that the old entrance off of Forest Hill Road, right where the trail is. The trail would be to the left of that photo. And going up that entrance, if you look at the photo closely, you'll see the ground material is full refuse, soil. The vegetation on site here is Japanese knotweed, sumac, tree to heaven, or invasive species of vegetation. Once you get up to the entrance, where it comes up on the western side, you'll see some abandoned vehicles. You'll see some buildings. They have heavy machinery in them that were used for the industrial activities at the site. Continue to see old abandoned vehicles throughout the site. This is heading south from the west point there. Then on the western, southwest side of the site, you'll see the full refuse piles, spoil piles, soft piles, that we call them, they used to call redundant piles. Remnants of the coal tipple that was used to load the coal down to the rail. Continuing from the southwest side, and I'm heading east now, there's spoil pile, and there is it was West Bend Power, First Energy Power, it's a distribution power line just to serve residential uses. And this bisects the property. Again, you can still see, I'm walking along, heading west here, you'll see some cool refuse piles going along here. Continue to see them until you get to about the center of the site. And then a lot of salvage vehicles here. This was the mine, when it was coal mine, this was like the maintenance building, bathhouse building. Directly to the right of that building, behind there is the opening to the mine. Just showing you the abandoned vehicles, trucks, trailers throughout the site here in the center portion of the site. This was, as you can see, there's like a high wall that's right behind on the south side of this building. This is there's surface mining activity here to get to the mine opening. On the left side of the site is where the mine opening used to be. It's currently closed up. There's a lot of fill material on it. And that is photo, I think it's photo number 9. Sorry, I'll try to say that. Keep up with it. And seeing the building, has some storage tanks there, a lot of vehicles, a lot of heavy equipment, trucks that are stored on site. And I'm continuing to move from west to east. This is in the center of the site. You see a lot of remnants of vehicles that were salvaged. An old maintenance building or storage building for the mine is reused here as a source of the salvage material. The heavy equipment, boats, campers, front end loaders, all appear to be abandoned. I don't believe they're in working condition. This is in the center site again, but this is looking towards the west. Then this is heading along the distribution line, electric distribution line to the center site, looking towards the east and heading to the east. You can see heavy equipment that's been abandoned and stored on site, a bunch of trailers, trucks. Again, you'll see some vegetation in the through here. It's on Flora Roads. This is kind of right at this is looking south from the center of the site on the eastern side. This is kind of like a good area to develop for industrial uses. There is remnants from the surface mining that was taking place on the western side of the property. So we have fill material that was moved on above the coal seam, dumped on in this area. Just showing some vegetation, regrowth. Areas that were cleared and disturbed, that we used fill material. Then continuing down on the east side of the center, and I'm heading east. There's a lot of equipment, storage trailers, old dump trucks, Traco, skid, more trailers, storage trailers. And this is on the far west side of the site, where I told you there's some strip mining, some surface mining, high wall there. See some mining activity, remove the soil and the coal. And that's just a far away picture taken there. This is
this gives an idea, and we're really early in the stage, but what we've done from an engineering standpoint that's evolved over the last year is to get a better idea where would the facility be sited. And we don't, obviously things change when you get into engineering. It's always a danger to do that because people hold you to it. But I think it's important to show what the intent of the site is. And you see when the site is finished, fully constructed, it ends up being a disturbance less than around 20 acres. The ordinance is set up that if you're going to do this type of use in the M1 district, you need a minimum of 50 acres. And within that, the draft ordinance that we have is that you can only cover the lot up to 30 acres. So even if you only have the minimum of 50 acres, you're going to end up with 20 acres surrounding the site that's open space. That's in addition to the existing buffer yard. There's a 35 feet minimum buffer yard around the entire site, and there's also a 100-foot setback around the entire site. So that combination of buffer yard, setback, and the minimal and cap on lot coverage ends up where you have a lot of site. One of the questions is, well, why are you doing all of this acreage? Well, one is we obviously have to ultimately site the facility, but it may also, we're also going to be coming up through the site through roadways, which we want to make sure that we don't have any use that's related to this that isn't properly zoned. But ultimately, we're going to end up with large areas of open space, and what we've preliminarily looked at are a series of soccer field and baseball fields on site, roughly in this area when we're finished. And that's something we want to work through with the township with the school district, with your community recreation organizations to work through. But what we want to show going from there is how we're sensitive to. We had some county comments on the first application, as Todd mentioned, on the county, the green print map. And these are the areas that are recommended as more of a conservation area, not to be disturbed. The reason we're showing you that concept plan is our intent is not to disturb those areas. As we indicated, the buffer for the trail is just to the northerly boundary, and there's no getting around that. Our property bounded that trail because it was a rail line, but there is a minimum 35-foot vegetative buffer and 100 feet yard setback. So no matter what we do, again, all we're going to do is have access there, but no matter what we do, there's going to be a buffer along the trail. And I believe that's why these comments in the initial county review letter were removed. And then Todd will work through what we tried to do. Again, even though we don't have the exact siting, the ordinance provides for buildings that may be as high as 145 feet and a single stack that may be as high as 20. That's very conservative. We think there'll be less than that, but again, we don't want to have to come in and say, oh, you know, it's higher. But what we wanted to do is go around the areas where people currently live and see in the most proximate areas, what would they see at various vantage points. So Todd, if you would walk through, you can see starting with number 1.
So starting with number 1, so I do want to backtrack a little bit. What we did here was we created a 3D model, a digital terrain model, DTM. And based on that DTM, we took Google Earth mapping, and basically the skin came down over top the 3D contours that were there. And any place there was trees that you can see. We put a tree in 3-dimensional, and if it was filled, we didn't put anything on it. So you'll see from these points, from where we're looking at the conceptual design, having a layout here. There's a residence over here at Spirian Drive. So this is the view that would be created. So this is what they would be looking at. Looking through the field, there's trees on there. So that if you also, that's based off. If you look in the top right-hand corner, that's seeing 5 foot off the ground, looking towards where the site layout would be. Then what we also did was we looked at it from the standpoint of, okay, how high up would you have to go up in the air in order to see the facility itself, one of the buildings, which is on the left side here. So you'd have to go 50 feet in the air at that point to be able to see the facility, to start to see the facility.
Which is this. That's what you would see if you were 50 feet above the ground at house number 1.
So vantage point number 2 from the layout, that's on Weddell Road, from the residence on Weddell Road. So 5 feet from the ground, standing in their backyard, you can see a swimming pool and trees. If you look at, when you're 50 feet up in the air, you can see the facility then. So you have to be, at that residence, you have to be 50 feet in the air to start to see the facility. So from point number 3, this is the Hollandale Farm, that's off of Still Hill Road. You wouldn't be able to see the facility when you're standing there. You have to go 100 feet in the air to be able to see the facility. So another residence off of Weddell Road, vantage point number 4. So you wouldn't be able to see the facility. You have to go up 50 feet in the air. There's here, I think it's right here. You'd be able to see 50 feet in the air, you'd be able to see the facility. And then 5 is off of Still Hill and Buzzards Run Road. There's a hill in the way. You have to go 330 feet up in the air to be able to see the facility. And then from over the Voyager Mobile Home Park, we created that to see. So you wouldn't be able to see it at 5 feet, and you would have to go 50 feet in the air to be able to see the facility. Smithdale. We did 3 residents from Smithdale. So you wouldn't be able to see the facility. There's a huge steep embankment there between Smithdale and where the site right up. So you have to go 250 feet in the air when you're in Smithdale to be able to see the facility. And this is from the layout to vantage point number 8. You can see up to 5 feet. And then you have to be 250 feet in the air to be able to see the facility. Then number 9 is in the northwest side of the property. So 5 feet, that's what you'd be looking at, looking towards the facility. Then you'd have to be 250 feet in the air to be able to see the facility. And then we took one from over at Cedarville, from the top of the hill. Over at Cedarville, this is the intersection of 4th Street and 7th Avenue. Looking back at the site. So you wouldn't be able to see the site at 5 feet, but if you go up 50 feet, you'd be able to see the site, the top of the facility.
So we wanted to, and thanks to Todd and his group, we wanted to do our best to show how well buffered the site is, even if the facility was built to the maximum height of the proposed ordinance. So what we hope to show by this in combination is, it's not in isolation that it's just an R1 district. We don't believe the site is properly zoned. In fact, whenever you look at your client as a developer and you say, what are your options? Right now, you have the chance to change it from one non-conforming use, heavy industrial use, to another. Professor Mystic will talk about non-conforming uses generally, but that's a very broad set of rights in Pennsylvania. So the other thing is that also on the power station, you don't have any power stations that are permitted anywhere in the township. It would be to file a validity challenge. So there are other ways to skin this cat. But what and as you know, on the other side, what AEC looked to do is to go to the zoning board and basically try to establish those rights legally. What we're doing here is we need to partner with the township. If the folks that represent the constituents don't think this is a good idea, overall, not that everybody's going to be pleased, not that we wouldn't like the benefits without any of the adverse impacts. But if overall, the commissioners don't think that this site should be rezoned in this text amendment, this isn't a suitable site, then it won't happen. We're not looking for a legal battle with the township. We're willing to fend off anyone that thinks that we're doing isn't legal if we do that. But what we're trying to show is not only this, we have a 4-year history now trying to select the right site. This is heavy industrial. The other thing I want to point out is your ordinance is set up. It doesn't have a heavy industrial classification. The most intense classification in your ordinance is M1. And if you look at the uses that are authorized in that district, they are heavy industrial uses. So, whenever you look at repair garages, wholesale and distribution, truck heavy equipment rental, heavy manufacturing, there's just an almost unending list of things that this could become because there are a bucket of rights that are already there. So we're asking the Board of Commissioners to look at this as an opportunity to address a serious nonconformity, to provide substantial benefits at a site that is actually appropriately zoned and appropriately sited for how it's going to operate in the existing infrastructure in the township. Todd, I think we'll just finish up. I just wanted to mention, when I started off with this, I just wanted to show, this is showing the arc from the proposed site. We put the 10,000 feet radius, so it gives you an idea of the separation in the ordinance. It's a little less than 2 miles from the center of that site. But the idea was to do that. And then, as we mentioned, there aren't any other, it's the purple that are the I districts, and as you can see, the other M1 districts are only 13 acres, 14 acres. Now this total along the river is 103 acres, but it's not deep enough and it's not assembled. So we don't believe there are any sites other than this site that fit, nor do we believe that anybody has the right to it unless you have legislative action that would make this site any other site in the township in M1, and that would comply with the ordinance as we're proposing. With that, I'd like to introduce you to my friend and Professor Joseph Sabino Mystic. The professor, when I met him, wasn't known as a professor, he's known as the zoning czar. I hadn't yet passed the bar, so I wasn't practicing yet, but I did enjoy where I was, and I happened to meet up. And I very much liked what was going on, and at that time, the professor was the zoning board adjustment chairman for the city of Pittsburgh. He was also vice chair of its planning commission. And that's what got me involved in it, and really in '82 when I graduated. I've been doing it really almost exclusively ever since. But it's because of, I worked for him and became his partner, and he's been a mentor in many ways. We have, and I gave to the board the professor's CV, and I wanted to just point out a few things on there, and it's from a planning perspective. There's currently Southwest Planning Conference, and if you look at the emphasis at Duquesne Law School, professor's been at Duquesne Law School since 1993, and the classes taught have focused on land use planning and urban renewal. Those that have, in this room that went through Duquesne may have had the professor at times and probably had him for land use law. But replayed throughout the CV are instances where he's been involved in major projects, major urban planning projects in this region and specifically in the city. So he is the preeminent expert in this area, and he's not testifying today. This isn't, as Mr. Rakunas noted, we're not presenting witnesses. He's not an expert. What I was hoping to provide is some flavor for what I'm trying to say about the site being non-conforming, and that this map change and what we're proposing to do with the site is actually very consistent, and we hope that the commission sees it as an opportunity. So with that,
thank you. Thank you to all of you and to the board. As Attorney Siddick said, this is a legislative matter, and I know how hard that can be. I've sat where these folks are sitting as a borough councilman in Eastern Keysport, and I was borough secretary in Braddock, and I have more years of experience in the city of Pittsburgh, of course. But I know it's especially tough to entertain an application like this, especially when you have constituents who are concerned, who may be opposed to the proposal. They're friends and relatives in many cases. So I understand how tough your decision is, and I also understand what you're thinking, because just as often as I've been on this side of the room, I've been on your side of the room, where Mr. Ferguson is sitting as an attorney representing the neighbors. I've spent many years struggling with sites like this. At the Pittsburgh Zoning Board and Planning Commission, later as Chief of Staff to Mayor Tracy Maslow, where I was responsible for the planning agencies and functions of the city administration. And throughout the region, communities have been dealing with properties like this and looking at their alternatives. I just have more experience because the city was bigger. We had more of these sites. In East McKeesport, we had some of these sites. In Braddock, we had so many of these sites that it was overwhelming, and it remains overwhelming. It's very hard to transform a site like this. It was a deep coal mine at one time, and then became a salvage yard. To understand why it's hard to do, you need to know just a tad about the history of land use law, zoning law in Pennsylvania. Zoning was first introduced in this area in the 1900s, early 1900s. It was part of the City Beautiful movement. It was an attempt to separate uses, and to keep the industrial uses away from residential uses as much as possible, the dirty industrial uses. It was embraced by the wives of the industrialists, the robber barons. But for them, we probably wouldn't have zoning in Pennsylvania. But the deal that the robber baron husbands got was this: we'll give you this comprehensive planning tool, and we'll give you zoning, but we get to keep using our property as we want to use it forever. And that's the deal that was cut. And that's how we got zoning in Pennsylvania. And as a result, sites like this can continue to be used as they were, essentially, forever. Now, this is currently a salvage road, so it's a non-conforming use. That's the heart of what the industrialists were concerned with. They didn't want anybody messing with their right to continue industry on their own property. So as a result, in Pennsylvania, this kind of use can survive forever. It can be changed from one non-conforming use to another. It's just as objectionable. It can expand naturally as a non-conforming use. So that makes it difficult when you're trying to find a way to bring it back online and in a way that's consistent with the rest of the community. I was always thankful when we would get an opportunity to create a better use on one of these sites. The 2nd Avenue Technology site along 2nd Avenue in Pittsburgh is such a site. That was the old J&L mill. We were stuck with it as an abandoned mill site for many years until it was determined by some other interests that it was perfect for laboratories, and we created the 2nd Avenue Technology site there, and that was the beginning of turning that around. We were able to change that intersection. It could have continued as a non-conforming use forever, but we were able to change it. Washington's Landing is another example in the city. With stockyards and a slaughterhouse and a rendering plant, we were able to attract a cleaner industrial use to that site, and then that opened the door for residential use in the area, on the island, and for recreational use. The B&O site in the heart of downtown Pittsburgh would have remained fallow, but for the fact that the county needed to build a jail there under a federal court order. So if you're ever wondering, when you're going down the parkway, why is there a jail right here in part of the city and overlooking the river? It's because that site would not lend itself to anything else, and the county was the first entity to step forward and say, we'd like to do something different. We'd like to use that site for something different. Otherwise, it would remain fallow and unusable. So you have that same opportunity here on this site that we have on all of those sites. The proposed use is far less intrusive than the prior use, than a deep mine, certainly, or a salvage yard. The M1 industrial zoning is the correct zoning designation for this site, for this kind of use. It's a former fossil fuel mining use site that would switch to a cleaner, state-of-the-art technology site, a clean burning energy source. The natural gas lines are there, the supply side of this, and the transmission lines are there as well. And they would be restricting their facility to a portion of the site, not packing or the entire site, or covering the entire site. Plus, they're not asking for a contribution or an incentive. We were always forced to concede something to these other uses when we were trying to reuse these sites. And sometimes, oftentimes, it was some sort of financial contribution to get them to come to these sites and to use these sites, and that's not the case here. So again, as I said, this is a legislative decision. You have a tough decision, but you have an opportunity to consider a decision for the future, breaking with the past. My only other comment is, you can answer any questions you might have, but the only other comment is that this is an opportunity that may not come again, or not come for a very long time, if ever. So I urge you to consider this in the best interest of your community, and that's not to diminish your interests, your concerns as citizens.
That's really the end of our presentation. So we're obviously available for questions.
Are there any questions from the commissioners before we open up the public comment? If at any point you guys do have questions, I'm sure Mr. Siddick and his team would be willing to entertain that. So if you come up with anything based on the public, let me know. At this time, we will open up the public hearings for public comment. Again, as stated earlier and pursuant to the township's public participation policy, we are limiting comments to residents and taxpayers of the township. We are extending the time to 5 minutes for public comment. We would ask that you please come down, step up to the microphone here where this gentleman is, and please be respectful of the time. No matter what your position is, we have to strictly enforce that, because if we let one talk longer, we have to let everyone talk longer. So we have to have a strict guideline on that 5-minute time limit. So I would ask that you all be very respectful. And again, please, no outbursts. We understand this is a hot topic, but please be respectful of everyone in the room. Frank Vogel. Yeah, just come up and state your name and address for the record.
Frank Vogel, Old Road,
Elizabeth Township resident, correct?
correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I have no need in this. I love the township, I love it the way it is. We could use some more, not industry, but more businesses. Beautiful township. It's great. I enjoyed it here. I enjoyed being on the back porch drinking beer in the evening, with the grandkids and around, having fun. And I can't see any kind of benefit that we're gonna see of having this industrial rezone. I can't see it. It's going to employ 24 people. And I just can't understand why it's necessary. It doesn't make any kind of sense. The township is great the way it is. Before I say anything else, I'd like to thank Mr. Similo and Mr. Roderick for having the common courtesy to return my phone call saying, that's it. Saying that, I have two questions. I see all this stuff here on this one, whatever it is, screen about trash and junk and all this stuff around the area you want. Why hasn't it been cleaned up? If the township can control this property owners, they can't control $1 million company. I mean, they can't even clean this area up. You have to let somebody else come in to make a mess. It doesn't make any kind of sense. To me, or most other people in this area. So how are you people going to control a multi-million-dollar company doing what they want to do when you can't control property owners that are polluting the property? How are you going to do this?
Thank you, Mr. President. Juanita Martini, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Juanita Martini, 1350 Solomon Road, Elizabeth, Pennsylvania, 15037. Yes, I am a homeowner. My mother and father was the second person on Fallen Timber Road to build a house. We had taken over that house after they passed away. The house sits very high. I'm going to see all those pipes in your building without a problem. The house sits high. We look down over Nichols Hill. Now we're looking over Blawha's gas well when it comes. And then we can see Ross Strader Airport. We have the most beautiful view in Allegheny County, and you're going to ruin it. Yes, I am against it. I think it is a shame what you guys want to do. And any of the committee people, I won't say what should happen to you, but I would like to applaud the two. I do believe there's two that are against it. And if you want to stand up, I would appreciate it if you know that you are definitely against this, because I think the rest of the people should know as well. If you haven't made up your mind, I hope you make it up time we're done. Because I would like to know who's getting paid off. This was a beautiful township. Leave it alone, please. I've lived in Pittsburgh for a long time. I love Pittsburgh, but I knew what I was getting into when I moved to Pittsburgh. When I come back out here to take care of my parents, I never wanted to come back out here again. But I did, and I love it out here. And I love our land. And you guys want to destroy it. And I want to know why you want to destroy it. And do you have anything in writing? That's what I want to know. How much is in writing? What I'm hearing, the pipe may go up this high, and it may not go up this high. The building may go up high, and it may not. What is in writing, and are you guys actually reading? And who's getting paid off? And I just need to
Just do it. I ain't really, whatever, it doesn't matter. No. A lot of it's gonna get covered by him, so it doesn't.
Merle Shotwell, lives on 6 Hall Road. Merle, M-E-R-L-E, Shotwell, S-H-O-T-W-E-L-L. I wasn't really prepared to talk, I signed that and did that. But anyway, I don't think our commissioners have a very good track record when they have this big landfill in the township that's turned into a great big waste dump. I guess it's EPA hazardous waste area. And if we put this other thing in, when they're all done and they move out, we may have another waste dump. Also, I don't believe that it only emits water vapor. Unless you're burning hydrogen, you're going to have a lot of other materials coming out. And showing that it's a junkyard, so it is, But if they want to look at the township, most of the township is undermined. Right where I live, there's mines under, I'm sure. So if you're going to say that an area that's a coal mine is no longer feasible to, that's the whole township. It's all undermined with coal mines. And I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not going to be out of order here, but I see you've got a list of people that are speaking. I've got 9 people on whose behalf I'll be speaking tonight.
Thank you,
so
Mr.
I'll yield to whenever you want me to do that.
I appreciate it.
I do know that the folks that I'll be on whose behalf I will be speaking, at least they won't be replicating what I'll be saying. So,
Okay. Thank you,
I'll
Mr.
wait for
Burke.
you.
Paul Kurtzdorfer. Mr. Kurtzdorfer, I noticed that you were a West Newton address on Elizabeth Township resident.
I was prior resident,
Currently?
prior taxpayer. I am not. I was advised that I wouldn't be allowed to speak. I live a mile off the site.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kurtzdorfer, the policy is that we are not allowing anyone outside the residence of taxpayers. Thank you.
That is true.
Ron Howell. Mr. Howell.
Westmoreland County. Spell your last name, please.
My name is Ron Howells. Last name is H-O-W-E-L-L. I live at 1801 Little Road, Elizabeth. I live in the house on top of the hill. And I found it quite interesting that your photos all were taken during the summer months when there's leaves on the trees. There was no leaves on the trees. Quite a view from where we are. Anyway, after that, I noticed, I've been observing all the commissioners over the last numerous commission meetings, and it's quite obvious that you all seem bored to death with the whole process. Your body language, your facial features, again, it's quite obvious. I know that you're probably tired of listening to the same comments and complaints over and over, month after month. Air pollution, noise pollution, light pollution,
impact on property values. I mean, what else can we say? I'd like to ask you though, have any of you taken a few minutes and really consider what it would be like to have a large motor or a large fan running in your backyard 24 hours a day? Or what would it be like if every night your neighborhood was lit up like the parking lot in a mall? I'm sure you all have a home and you all take very good pride and very good care of your home. You probably put a lot of money into it. It's a good investment, right? Well, how would you feel if you woke up some morning and find that the value of your property has significantly dropped? Are we going to have our properties reassessed?
Yes.
And our taxes going to be computed on the new assessment? I doubt it. Industrial use is not just going to affect those of us who live near the facilities, it's going to affect the whole township. No one in their right mind would want to relocate to Elizabeth Township. You've already ruined hundreds of acres by allowing all these gas wells and pipelines to go there. Now you want to rezone it? Anywhere in the township, you could end up with a pipeline or another industrial facility. By rezoning the township to industrial use, I feel it's the beginning of the end of Elizabeth Township.
Yep,
A rural, suburban community, and you're turning it into an industrial waste. When you go home at night, tonight, when you all go home, I want you to listen when you get out of your car. Listen, what do you hear? And then imagine this large fan or large motor running in your backyard, 24 hours a day. Look at the dark, look up the sky at the stars. What do you see? The neighborhood is lit up like a parking lot. Are you going to see those stars? Enjoy that? I doubt it. So think about it. And not just the commission, everyone out there. Think about it when you go home tonight. Thank you, and I hope you're all having a Merry Christmas.
Scott Taylor?
Good evening, guys. Scott Taylor, 304 Mohawk Drive. As most of you guys, actually all you guys know, I'm the president of the local community group of Protect Elizabeth Township, so I will be speaking on behalf of our group tonight, as well as myself. I prepared a whole list of talking points, but I'm going to leave most of that to our legal counsel and bring him up in a little while. Our group advocates for the voice of the people. Those that can't make it out to these meetings because they work the back shifts, they can't come out and talk to you people personally. We hold regular meetings in our township on a regular basis to get their worries, their concerns, and bring them to you. You guys have heard us numerous times talk about the legalities of this, the proper thing to do. We all know, this township knows that there are many issues that need to be fixed in this township, and it takes money to do it. And I'll talk with all of you guys individually, most of you individually. There's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. You guys need to roll your sleeves up, get to work, and do things the right way. Not these knee-jerk reactions, putting Band-Aids on the time. You guys pride yourselves on raising local taxes in 17 years now. Well, ironically enough, this township also knows we got a huge sewage issue in this township. It's going to cost us a lot of money. Ironically enough, we've been kicking that can down the road for how many years now? 17? Now, I'm assuming these guys are going to come in and put that Band-Aid on for you, right? Sales 101. Find the problem, put a Band-Aid on it. Speaking to the emissions, it's not going to be just steam. If you're combusting any type of fuel, there's going to be emissions. It's not steam. As far as the non-resident issue here, we have at least 100 folks that have signed a petition that you'll be getting a copy of that live inside of 1.5 miles of this facility. There are more people that live outside of our boundaries that are going to be affected by this than live inside our boundaries. They deserve to be heard. They may not vote for you, but they're going to be suffering from your decisions. Thank you.
However, I noticed you're not a resident or taxpayer.
Correct. I'm speaking on behalf of our 39 taxpaying members of Mountain Watershed Association.
Do you have authorization or power of attorney or some written document that you can speak on their behalf?
The members of our organization, 39 of them.
I'm saying who is authorized, what taxpayer or resident are you speaking on behalf of specifically?
Me. Put your hands up, folks. Right here. The river runs through our township.
Will some resident come up here then and say that he's speaking on your behalf?
I will.
Mr. Taylor, you've used your time already. So
Yeah, I do know how you are. That's the problem.
My name is Barry Mayer. I live at 2900 Square Drive, and he is speaking on my behalf.
thank you very much. I'm trying to keep order. That's the whole purpose of doing this, is to keep order. Thank you. Go ahead.
Martha Evans, 100 State Street, View. This yes affects me. I live on that river. It affects the river for us. Flooding, and this is going to be more.
Ms. Evans, I don't have you on the list. So he's speaking on your behalf too.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Martin.
Thank you all.
Can you give me your name again, please?
It's Eric, E-R-I-C, Harder, H-A-R-D-E-R. And I'm your Youghiogheny River Keeper with Mountain Watershed Association. Again, we have 39 members, some of them who are here. I'm speaking on their behalf. Mountain Watershed is a local grassroots nonprofit dedicated to protecting, preserving, and restoring the Youghiogheny River watershed. We'd rather protect than have to restore. So let's think about that as we go into the future. Established in '94, and in 2003, we joined the Waterkeeper Alliance, which is an international organization, encourages local communities to advocate for protection of their local water bodies through things like education, awareness, and legal action. The Alliance now consists of over 300 waterkeepers. By being the home of the Youghiogheny River Keeper, we are tasked with advocating for the rights and protections of the river as though it was a person like you or I. We regularly patrol the river by water and land. We review and comment on NIPD's permits applications. We promote recreation on the river and the other opportunities in our watershed. For example, we make water trail maps to get people informed on what to expect when on the river, and we lead wildlife walks, basically building stewardship for our natural surroundings. We also hold workshops, like our septic system management workshop, basically encouraging people to maintain their septic systems instead of costly replacement. We also monitor water quality. Our swimmable waters program maps out bacteria levels and E. coli levels within the watershed, so you know where it's safe to swim, so you know where it's not safe to swim. The portion of the Yogh that will be affected by this power plant and the rezoning to industrial is going to have negative effects on people who use the river, people who use the trail, the river itself, aquatic organisms. I was just out there the other day. I saw lots of birds, ospreys, blue herons.
Eagles.
We got someone called us to tell us there's bald eagles out there. And there's lots of kayakers, canoeists, people who fish. And those those people are all gonna be affected by this. But not only that, but the residences on the other side of the river, where you guys did not do a line of sight view, farther north on the Gap Trail, they're definitely gonna see the project, whether it's completed, and they're definitely gonna see it when it's in construction. Rezoning to industrial will most certainly have an impact on the river. Excuse me, industry often consumes a lot of fresh water, and if the zoning change is carried out, this leaves 110 other acres for industrial development. Industrial discharges, increasing land development, and large construction sites are all common sources of sediment and polluted water that will enter the yacht directly or through the small tributaries near the site. And of course, we all know that the DEP is in charge of permitting this site and any discharge that comes off of it. But they always permit whatever project is kind of put in front of them. So it's really up to us to tell you now that we don't want this here.
Yay!
So again, people, visitors, locals are going to be impacted the entire time during this project, not just during the construction or when it's completed, but after, like someone else said, after it's abandoned and you guys leave, what else is left then? I recently spoke with some of our members who use this portion of the Gap Trail that's going to be affected. Two of these individuals lead guided bike tours on the Gap Trail, other places around the United States, internationally. And they focus on scenic and visually appealing trips. Not only that, but also inviting accommodations, housing, cafes, bed and breakfasts, breweries, bike shops, kind of what you guys got going here. No one really wants to go biking and asks to go into industrially zoned areas. So, please keep the yacht protected and deny this zoning change.
Mr. Harden, I want to make a point of clarification.
Please do.
You are here on behalf of Mountain Watershed, correct?
Correct.
Is that your organization?
Correct.
And, go ahead, what is your position?
I'm the Yakabini River Keeper is my position.
Okay. And you have 39 members who are residents, is that correct? Who are residents of the township?
Of Elizabeth Township,
Okay,
correct.
correct. Okay. And one of those members has authorized you to speak on their behalf, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm saying you have members who are township residents who are authorizing Mountain Watershed to speak on their behalf, correct?
Correct.
Now, is Melissa Marshall,
Not giving
pardon me?
We're not giving Mr. Ritter's time over, he's only identifying himself.
I understand that. I understand that, Mr. Ferguson. I'm trying to make it a point that Mountain Watershed, though, is using their time. So I'm just trying to make that difference. So I believe that Melissa Marshall, you're with Mountain Watershed as well, correct?
Correct.
You're not a resident, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so Mountain Watershed, you've used your 5 minutes, okay? I just wanted to explain the distinction, because we're not passing time off. It's not like you're gonna be able to pass time off, so.
I'm addressing completely different issues about the permitted use and how this amendment is structured.
Yeah, I understand that, but each person gets 5 minutes, or organization. Mr. Carter has spoken on behalf of Mountain Watershed, on behalf of the residents for Mountain Watershed, so, you are a resident of Melville.
Different residents team and businesses that
No,
are.
because Mountain Water, that's the difference. You can't pass time. We're not sharing time. That's why I wanted to draw the distinction. Mountain Watershed is speaking on behalf of those township residents who live here. He's authorized to do that according to the members who came to speak.
Okay.
So Mountain Watershed is not this topic, so I appreciate it.
Okay, and this is in accordance with the public policy.
Yeah, the public participation policy.
Yes, and that policy addresses what types of gatherings.
It's public gatherings, public meetings, public speaking.
Does it include gatherings as well?
It would, so,
It does not.
okay.
It does not. It says public meeting. It does not say public hearing.
Okay, thank
I
you.
read it last night.
Debbie Gimala. Oh, yeah, come up, please.
Fix that mic.
Yeah, fix it.
I just wanted to say that my comment was previously stated before, but I do live in Elizabeth Township and I do have concerns about it because I do use the river a lot and the trails. And I would prefer to see it stay as it is and not be industrialized like that. Basically, that's all I'm gonna say.
Mr. Weston? Mr. Weston, I see you're a resident of West Newton. I am. Are you a taxpayer in Elizabeth? No. One thing I'm sorry,
You brought me up on the map, I live in Voyager, so evidently I'm affected by their own vision. Yes. I live
the policy is that we're only limiting this to residents and taxpayers. I guess I'm invisible. I don't know.
That's a taxpayer. Take a motion, take a vote.
Mike Weston,
That was me. In a public meeting or a public hearing?
Cindy Rojan.
What is the policy affect? It affects public meetings, it's a public hearing.
My name is Cindy Rojan, R-O-J-O-H-N. I live in Greenup, PA. I am a township resident. My family's been here since 1850. I can't hear me either. All right, can you hear me now? Then the whole world's gonna hear me. All right, is that better? Is that better? Did you get my name? Before I start to speak, I do want to say one thing. I don't think anybody understood that Mountain Watershed couldn't have two people here to speak. Melissa is the attorney for the organization, and most of the people in this room actually are part of that organization. 2 years ago, I got a new neighbor. My new neighbor decided that he was going to cut my grass because he didn't like the way it was cut. Came into my property, 2 lawnmower widths, and cut it down to the dirt. I asked why, and he told me that he didn't like that I had a few weeds on my property. The end result of that was that he put a fence, you know, normal Lowe's fence with the panels. He put 3 panels up, 5 stakes, but then he left it. The stakes are hanging over the chain link fence that has been there since the 1950s. Why am I telling you this? Because the end of the fence is on my property. He didn't get a permit. He didn't have a survey, and this is permitted use. What is going to happen when all of this township is legislated to be permitted use? We are going to have chaos. We're going to bring every bad person and business into this township, including Invenergy, because their track record isn't the best. I think that you're doing a disservice to the people in Smithville and West Newton and all the surrounding areas, because they were here first, and they were here prior to you introducing a company that is coming in here that has a industrial usage, not into their not into the residential. Light industrial is partially processed materials in production, consumer-oriented goods. I do not think that Invenergy fits that definition. And also question what they're doing here. I think it should be listed as a special exemption. And I also have a major question that I would like to answer when I'm done with my 5 minutes, as to whether or not the other ordinance or the other zone question that's being asked. If something happens and Invenergy does not come here for whatever reason, are the people in Smithville stuck with that vote of you making it a different zoning? I think that's important for everybody to know here. The situation reminds me of now what it's like to get on an airplane. There's peacocks, there's cats, there's dogs, there's Christmas trees. Why? Because the airlines didn't get a solid definition of what could be brought. And this whole project here is what that reminds me of. There are no rules. Permitted use doesn't set any rules. It allows everybody to set the rules, and the township people as it is don't follow the rules, and the code enforcement, no offense, John, does not do the best of job to check through the neighborhood to see what has happened and that people are following those ordinances. Do the right thing, that both didn't vote no for both of these agendas. The zone that we have here, and I've said this so many times before, it's a good one. Leave it the way it is. It has been here for a reason, and it's stayed here for a reason. There's a piece of property, from what I understand, that has been between 48 and 136 on a 51 corridor, which is very near to Mr. Roderick's property. Why don't they go there? It is lobbyists for the industry. You're supposed to be lobbyists for your constituents. My question, please, what happens if you vote to change this zone and Invenergy can't come here for whatever reason? Or is that contingent on Invenergy, or is it permanent, or should that part of the vote be actually delayed and postponed until a decision is made about Invenergy coming here for sure? Now, no, I'm asking the question.
Yeah, this is public comment, so.
Oh, okay.
Janine, Christian, Patty Hoffman.
Patty Hoffman, 408 Duncan Station. Okay. Well, we're looking at a lot of issues here. And before I start, I want to present what happened in less than a week. Very few people who had time away from work, in the rain and everything else, going out and talking to the citizens of this township, something that most of you do not really do. I have 241 signatures from residents. 69 of those are from Ward 6. Andrew, your ward's in here too. There were 300, as of today, people on the online petition signing. We're looking at 316 township residents as of the time that I came to this meeting tonight, in less than a week, in a very short period of time, giving their voice to this. So I would like to take this and give this to you. We're still getting people that are turning things as of tonight. You know, it's easy to see the township in terms of dollars for some people, courting inappropriate industries to replace land set aside for farms, families, and recreation. It's easy for some people to forget comprehensive plans, zoning regulations, and ordinances, which were meant to protect the residents. It's easy for some people to fool themselves into thinking that not following the rules and the laws in place is okay, because rules were not meant for them. Although Elizabeth Township is made up of small, little towns, each with its own special history, it does not make us less of one township. And because your neighbor may live a mile or two away from you does not change the fact that they are still your neighbors. It's the residents of one area who, if they suffer in one way, are felt that by every other person in this township. Look at the flooding. This also applies to the businesses in our township. They do the best they feedback for them because they are good neighbors. As in any community, there is always the exception to the rule. Some neighbors have problems with each other, and some businesses think that they should have more than they have and more rights than they have, and that's why we rely on our zoning laws, our ordinances, and our comprehensive plans. These are our guidelines. They are the way that we deal with disputes. When we make exceptions to these rules without community input, chaos is created. When we allow out-of-state industries to create our ordinances and our zoning laws and our maps, when they break the rules, they are setting the chaos, and you're helping them. We're here tonight because that is exactly what is happening. We're here, they're here, they made the laws, they want to set precedent. You're not letting people in the surrounding areas talk. You know what? They are also our neighbors. The people in West Newton, the people in Sutersville are our neighbors. That we want to have heavy industry in our township. We should want to have our farmlands and residential areas swallowed up into M1 light industrial zones. We should believe that we'll be better off when the trees are cut down and 30 acres of land will be instead replaced by ugly buildings and towers which are currently triple the size of our zoning allowances. Tanks filled with chemicals, lights and trucks are coming, and they're going to be coming and going. And that we will be better off when we have no control to place conditions on future developments. We know better. I would ask you to follow the current zoning laws, ordinances, and comprehensive plan. Protect our township, vote no to these changes. Put a referendum in to get public feedback in November, please. Thank you.
Last call.
I am also a resident of West Newton. Is there someone in Elizabeth Township that wants me to speak on their behalf?
You can't share
Hand
time.
your papers over to someone else that'll speak
You
for
can't
you.
share time.
We have an objection, a hard objection, noted in the record. You're in violation of open meetings laws by not allowing another person to speak. If
can't
another
share
person
time,
here
sir.
lives
That's-
here,
yeah.
sign up for that. That's a violation.
If they were authorized
Put the
power of
objection.
attorney or authorization, that's fine.
Is it an open meeting law or not?
Go ahead.
I yield my time to Mike Ferguson.
Okay, thank you.
Did you note the objection?
Paul Blainer?
If it's not open meeting, how can you control public comment?
Paul Blainer is a resident who lives within a mile of the power plant. He's not here because of work and he yields his time to Ray Ferguson.
Russell Verbanek?
So, Verbanek, V is in Victory, E-R-V-A-N-E-C, live at 325 High Street, Elizabeth, PA. I am in favor of the proposal to build a gas turbine combined cycle power plant for Smithfield. The plant will provide jobs, approximately 24, that will provide a livelihood, so well-paying jobs for the employees and substantial tax revenue to the township and school district. A similar sized gas power plant in Springdale, PA pays over $200,000 in real estate taxes each year. There are over 1,700 gas power plants in the United States. These plants have operated safely for many years and have the lowest air emissions of any fossil fuel for producing electricity. The air emissions for the new plant will be regulated by the EPA and will have to meet new plant standards, which will be as strict as or stricter than those met by the operating plants. Since the EPA standards are sufficient to protect the people around the operating gas plants, I see no reason why the air quality would not be safe around this new plant. The new plant would also have to meet EPA standards for its water use. The EPA would regulate the effects of taking water from the Invenergy River
and the quality of any wastewater returned to the river. There are gas turbine power plants operating in both the Monongahela, the Fayette Energy Center, and the Allegheny in Springdale rivers, and they appear to have had no detrimental effect on these rivers. As far as noise levels are concerned, I have visited gas turbine power plants of similar size in Springdale and near Masontown, and did not observe high noise levels. I see no reason why the new power plant would produce sound levels that would disturb the lives of nearby residents. The site of the proposed plant is on land that is zoned residential, but has been used for mining and dumping of mine waste. This makes the land unsuitable for the zoned use. This is similar to other land in the township that is zoned residential, but has been used for dumping of fly ash and other waste material, and are also unsuitable for the zoned uses. It was stated at other meetings that a former slag dump and former industrial site have been developed into residential areas in Pittsburgh. This is true. The slag dump used $60 million in public funds, and the industrial site used $26.5 million in public funds before they could be developed. I see no source of such funds for the similar land in the township. The township needs to develop a plan to make the township lands used for mining, dumping, and other such uses available for suitable development. The approval of this plan for the gas turbine power plant will be a step in the right direction for this land near Smithdale. I see no safety, health, or environmental concerns for the building of a gas turbine power plant in the township. I urge the commissioners to approve for this project. Thank you.
I agree with a lot of what everyone's been saying about the noise and the light and the air pollution, but you have to really figure out what they're going to do before you do anything about it. You know, you can't just let them go on their own. That's all. Everyone else covered pretty much what I wanted to say.
This is just here to observe.
Bill Fellow?
That's I'm here with him.
Okay. Ken Ball?
Ball. B-A-L-L. 738 Boyce Hollow Road, you know this, but.
Can't hear you, sir.
738 Boyce Hollow, University. So a lot of you heard what I had to say 2 years ago. It hasn't changed. What has changed is I took a screenshot of Good Morning America last week, and it says, a report from the federal government this past week warned the effects of climate change, including heat waves, disastrous wildfires, and powerful hurricanes, are already impacting the United States, with the risk of far more catastrophes in the future. So that's the federal government. And I would, having been here a couple years ago, I would have to applaud you guys on your presentation and bringing history into the picture, showing us what damaged the coal mines. And I understand that you view a gas-powered plant as being kind of a gap measure, moving from coal to renewable resources or renewable sources of energy. And I would applaud that, but if the government is saying that things are bad and they're getting worse, maybe we need to bite the bullet, eliminate this phase, and focus more on renewable resources. So perhaps you're looking at some kind of benefit from this. And I would say, you know, if there was a host agreement, I could see possibly a benefit. But there is no host agreement. You said that there was no agreement made for our township to host your industry. You also mentioned, I believe, that there would be no local taxes paid, because as I understand it, taxes from energy producing companies go to the state, not to the local government. Could be fake news, but we're used to that. So no local taxes, no host agreement. I don't understand the benefit. I don't understand why we can't see what history has done with the coal mining and say, hey, let's focus on solar, let's focus on wind, rather than putting 110-degree water after it's been used back into the river. So now, got some time left. I'm going to quickly go over what I said previously. We live on a farm in Elizabeth Township, been there for 45 years. It's been in the family for 80 years. What we do, we raise chickens, sheep, cattle. We raise grass-fed cattle. Here with my 95-year-old neighbor, and together we farm vet. He has been here his whole life. My wife has been here her whole life. And let me skip to the cattle. I'm sure you're interested in that. So the cattle are grass-fed. It's an all-natural diet, no antibiotics, no steroids, no hormones, no pesticides. My wife and I bale the hay that it takes to carry the animals through the winter. So all the grass they eat, all the water they drink, all the air that they breathe is supplied right here in Elizabeth Township. We sell the beef by the quarter as freezer beef to individuals within a 15 to 20-mile radius. So as you can see, our carbon footprint is very small, but our concern for the environment, the source of the air, the water, the grass that nourishes our animals and in turn nourishes us is very large. My immediate concern with this proposed change to light industrial is its effect on the air, water, and grass, all of which in some way will be absorbed by our animals. Thank you.
Bill Piper, 714 Clark Street, that's in Buena Vista. I have a cautionary tale tonight. This guy dies. Let's call him Roger. He goes to the gates of heaven. St. Peter comes out and says, "Wow, we weren't expecting you until tomorrow. We don't have any accommodations for you." I don't know what, well, we called down below. You can go spend the day down below. Come up tomorrow, everything will be taken. So not being a fellow that wants to raise a stink, Roger gets in the elevator and he goes down. Well, when the doors open, it's a beautiful vista. There's a golf course, immaculate greens. There's a stream stocked with fish. There's a clubhouse on a hill. Satan's there and says, "Come on, we're gonna play 18 holes of golf." When we're done there, after a quick shower and a change of clothes, we're gonna have one of the finest dinners you ever had. Steak, wine, after dinner, Cuban cigars, Irish whiskey, no hangovers. Well, the day went by swimming. Next day, he gets on the elevator, he goes back up there. St. Peter says, well, you ready to see your new place? Roger says, well, Kate, what do you guys do up here for fun? St. Peter says, well, we drift on clouds and we play the harp and we have discussions about philosophy and morals. And Roger says, well, you know, I think I had a better time down below. I think that might be where I want to go. St. Peter says, okay. So he gets in the elevator, he goes back down, and the door opens. There's no beautiful vista. There's no golf course. It's a swamp. It's a cesspool. Satan's standing there and says, come on. Roger says, wait, wait. He says, what happened? Satan says, well, about that. We were campaigning yesterday. We voted today. And if I had a malicious laugh at me, this is where I would laugh maliciously. So, you guys want to vote today, from what I understand. Are you prepared for the Pandora's box we could be opening?
Yeah, that's right, everybody knows me. Emerson Dainty, last name is D-A-I-N-T-Y. Live on 2774 Sorian Drive, and I'm looking forward to talking. I would like to talk.
Oh, okay. Very good. Jill.
Thank you.
Sorry.
B-E-J-G-E-R. B-E-J-G-E-R. Frederick, F-R-E-D-E-R-I-C-K. And I live at 161 Roush Drive, 5037. Sorry. 161 Roush Drive, Elizabeth, VA 15037. I also kind of have a cautionary tale. I grew up in Elizabeth in Forward Township on Williamsport Road near what we call the Dump. This local landfill gradually crept up so close to our house that we had no choice but to sue for the value. The smell, the noise, the dust were all incredible. Even though all kinds of regulations and rules existed over what they could do, what time they could do it, and how much noise they could make, they didn't pay attention. And who did we call? Well, we called the local police first, but they didn't care. Then we called the DCNR in Harrisburg, and it wasn't their problem. The county police, the state police, no. How about the EPA representative for our area? After 3 or 4 calls and no one showing up to enforce the rules and regulations, the representative suggested we write the days and times of our complaints down and call once a week to report them. But who is going to enforce this when it happened? How long would we have to suffer when the Dump was clearly violating any agreement they had made? I'll tell you who, no one. No one enforced it. Which is how we ended up in a lawsuit that we won, but actually lost. Which is how my family was given a portion of the value of their property and home, and which is how we ended up leaving our home. And that's why I'm here now to oppose this power plant and rezoning proposal in my own township for my own home, because this is deja vu. I bought property here because it was quiet, residential, close to green space, and near the bike trail. Easy to get to the city, yet easy to get to the mountains. My husband and I built our home just like my parents did, and also just like they did, I'm here to protect where I live and my property value. And I'm here to tell you that if you give an inch to this company, they are going to take a few miles. They are going to damage your roadways, streams, dump it into the river, and pretend that they had nothing to do with it. And they will act completely oblivious. If you give them the benefit of the doubt by not nailing down important details and getting specific answers now, they are going to shock you with their ability to not answer or care after the fact. They're going to damage our water and air quality and then they will blame it on someone else. And if you rezone an area for township is up for grabs by questionable industries who have ongoing legal battles across the country. Please vote no on this proposal.
My name is Fred Bickerton, B-I-C-K-E-R-T-O-N. I live at 256 Lexington Drive. Now, what is the legacy that our commissioners wish to leave with us? One of promoting health, safety, and welfare of their neighbors, or those responsible for trashing Elizabeth Township? You know, I've been coming to council meetings for several months, complaining about the illegal junkyard that these people want to use. Nobody wants to do anything about it. Let them keep trashing it. Why do we have ordinances if we don't obey them? You know, has anybody looked at where power plants are typically located? Really, you need to check it out. Springdale, Chesley, South Lakes, Crescent Township, Union Township, to name a few of the local municipalities that have power plants. What do they all have in common? They're all poor, depressed areas. Yes, why? They get little or nothing from the power plants except low property values, pollution, and a drain on public services. Why are we trying to be more like South Park, Upper St. Clair, or even Jefferson Borough? These affluent municipalities are riddled with environmental effects of coal mining industry just like we are. But their commissioners are visionary. They've kept undesirable industry out and developed substantial tax base with the residential development of these containing high-value housing on these environmentally depressed areas. In most cases, without outside funds. The developer pays for it. You know, we already have the worst air quality in the country due to manufacturing in Mon Valley. Why do we want to make it worse by allowing another big polluter to come in? Mr. Sig sat up here and says, we don't have anything coming out of the stack of water vapor. He needs to go back and double check. Based on the EPA reports, their regs allow for a new plant like this to emit 2.4 million tons of CO2 and 90 tons of methane and NOx per year.
That's just water.
Nothing but water vapor? So much for trying to curb global warming. There will also be emitted significant tonnages of heavy metals, such as arsenic, lead, mercury, organic compounds. They have a list of 42 organic compounds that are commonly emitted by gas-fired power plants. And fine particulate matter, the kind that causes health problems. Why do we want to expose our children to this? Invenergy claims that they will not create noise, lighting, or water pollution problems. Are you naive enough to believe them? Google Invenergy lawsuits. See what their promises are really worth. Yes. Nothing. Everybody's serious. They hire a bunch of attorneys to break their promises and screw the locals. It's your legacy. What do you want your name to be worth? You want to be the hero or the spoiler?
My name is Clinton Taylor, 2087 Smithdale Road, Western Pennsylvania. I am a taxpayer in Elizabeth Township. I have lived in Robert's community now for 6 years. When I met him, he came to my house, made sure I got his vote that first year. He did everything he could. He made sure I got a curb in front of my house, did everything he could. Then he all of a sudden turned corrupt. Now here we have company says, you made a promise, you better keep it. And now here we are, we're gonna rezone property. Number one, it's not safe to build on. We're gonna have to engineer something that's, you know it's gonna be tough. I mean, it's not an easy task. I've been in construction for 17 years. It's pretty tough to get undermined full and pump it full of ground and make stable ground. It's not safe. We have property that is safe. Unfortunately, it's behind one of our commissioner's house. Also, this green land that he posted, which is, if you look in the rules, totally illegal, because we should all be able to go on that property and use it as green space. My family lives, you know, I already sent you a personal message. How would you feel if your kids had to grow up living, looking at that? You didn't have that option. You had Blaine Balto. You had a great community up in Blaine. Why are you going to ruin mine? It's important for my family. It's important for your family. Andrew, you know, we got a long career here in this township. We want to make it good, or do we want to sit here and fight every day? We don't. Why don't we work together? Let's fix our roads. Let's do things to the code. Let's make things right. We can't even fix a roadway 60 feet wide that fell in correctly. I brought the pictures up there, and you know what you saw. We'll look at it. Nobody's been down. The equipment's still there. Nothing has been done. If we can't do the basics, how are we going to do the big pictures, guys? It's really simple. I mean, we got to look at infrastructure of ourselves before we look at industrial infrastructure. How are we getting sewage to McKeesport? How are we getting fire hydrants in Smithville? We already lost one of them. How are we getting people to and from work when we have roads collapse? All these things are questions that we need to answer before we allow industry here, or before we think about rezoning. I mean, we have places that don't really need rezone to put these people. Where the old fruit stand was, I'm sure all of you know, on 51, used to be a fruit stand there. Somebody kicked that fruit stand out. We won't mention their names. Sold some property to some geotech company that might be somebody's friend, and now that property is already available. We can put your power plant there. You have access to 51. You have access, and I've walked the power lines from across the river. They come from the old power plant, they come up, and they split. We have a power line that goes behind one commissioner's house. We have another power line that goes towards the Elizabeth Forward High School. At that point right there, you can build your generation. The only thing you really are going to struggle with is water. I'm sure you can come up with a way to get water from the Mon or the Yacht, because you're right in the middle at that point. You can have two rivers to pick from. There's better options than rezoning. That's what we're asking. Thank you.
Darcy Lewis, Little 109 Duncan Station Road, Clinton Township, 15135. I have an issue with the whole thing. First off, I'm sure everybody can agree. The meeting was at 5 o'clock today. A lot of people worked 8 to 4:30, 9 to 5:30. So a lot of people were excluded to voice their opinions here because they were stuck at work, vacation, and the holidays. So I kind of feel that a lot of people are being stifled. Second off, I don't think it should be up to the commissioners to make the decision. From all of us here, it should be proposed on election. Not leave it to just a handful of people to make that decision. Second off, the proposal of soccer fields and football field, green space. Isn't this land contaminated? Would you want your children and grandchildren playing in that? I know I would. Do you guys want it? No. So it's supposed to sweeten the pot and sweeten the deal? I don't believe it. No, I don't agree with it. And I think everybody should have a vote on it as a general election. Thank you.
I just want to say, remember the people voted you in. These people, not them. Do what's right for the people.
38 Boyd Hollow.
Boyd Hollow.
Kansas. Okay, most people think you already have your minds made up. And most people think you don't have any regard for the people that live in the township. We'll see after a while when you vote. There are lots of things that can make a person lose their faith in humanity. One of those things happened to me recently at a planning committee meeting. One of the members of the committee seemed to be concerned about a request from a company and asked several questions. Then when the vote came, he voted to send the application to the commissioners to be voted on. After the meeting, I asked that member of the committee if he felt that the company was telling the truth when he answered his questions. He said no, they were lying. Everybody that comes here asking for something lies. Everybody lies. So, again, Elizabeth Township is in a position to be lied to or deceived with promises of money and workers saying they need jobs. Yes, they need jobs and they will have jobs, but those jobs don't have to be in Elizabeth Township. And that and should remain a safe residential area that is not appropriate for heavy industry. Over and over again, at commissioner meeting, we're told that the position that our township is in is because of bad decisions made by commissioners in the past. Every now and then we hear something that restores our faith in humanity and gives hope for the future of our community. At the last commissioners meeting, Andrew mentioned that there are grants to be applied for. So maybe it's time to look for positive, constructive ways to pay for past mistakes, instead of making yet more bad mistakes that will change the course of the township for years to come. Maybe we can, at some point, not now, use this property for renewable energy if we don't make a bad decision to change the zoning now to something that cannot be reversed. Hopefully, our current commissioners have learned from the terrible warnings of the past. We have a little sign on our desk at home that says, if you can't be a good example, you can be a terrible warning. Please be a good example. Stand up for what's right. Stand up to keep Elizabeth Township a place where people can come home from work, take a deep breath, enjoy peace and quiet, refresh themselves to get back to work tomorrow.
Soonersville, yes.
Resident taxpayer of Elizabeth.
I live a half a mile from where the site is.
Sorry, policies, we can't let you speak.
Another objection on
Robert Fellebaum. Robert Fellebaum. 227 Patton Street.
I think he left.
Did he leave? Bill Kosha. I don't know if I pronounced last name.
No, it's Chochu.
I'm sorry.
It's spelled CIOCCIO. I live on 1066 Wallen Timber Road, Elizabeth Township. If I've been a resident of Wallen Timber Road, this 50 years this month. We built up there, it was a beautiful place to build. And we have seen it deteriorate. I left a town called New York. You remember the smog of 48? Yeah, and this is what I hope that we don't ever become here, because, you know, we just gave the company to do this, and then they had the plant that was able to produce zinc, and they produced this horrible stuff called nitrous oxide. I'm not exactly sure, but it formed a lethal lid over the whole town. 30 people died in 2 days, or 3 days. And I said, you know, we're not at that extreme, but why did we pick Elizabeth Township that was a nice, clean farm area when you have, if you go down to
between West Elizabeth and New Eagle, there's two power plants that are down. They're West Bend Power and Mitchell Power. Why don't you guys go there? That's readily available. There's no problem. It's not residential. You can go down there, and there's a railroad there, there's a river there, there's a power plant right there that you can bring your electricity in, whatever you need. And there's no real restrictions because it's already zoned. That was my only real comment. I feel, I don't know whether they ever looked into it. Did you ever look into it? I hope you did. And you come to Elizabeth Township, and I have to look out my backyard now at night, and I see lights going on down there. They're going to put a well in down there. And I was really opposed to that. But it's there. We didn't get a referendum on it. It just came. New York gets to seem to get referendums, and New York gets none of this drilling. They seem to survive. It goes somewhere else. I just feel that we are looking at the picture the wrong way. Thank you.
And Diane Molly.
My name's Terry Lumley, L-E-M-L-E-Y. My wife's Diane. She couldn't make it, she had to work. And she wrote this. I'll be quick. My husband, Pastor Terry Lumley, and I have lived in Smithville about 24 years. I have come to love this town with its uniqueness and friendliness.
Time out. Time. Can't hear. Nobody can hear. Time out. Stop his time.
Just reset his time. Reset his time.
Thank you.
My husband, Pastor Terry Lumley, and I have lived in Stop that. Do I have to touch it? How do you hear me?
Because it's oxygen. It's his oxygen.
How many decibels is that?
My husband, Pastor Terry Lumley, and I have lived in Smithville about 24 years.
May I read that for
Did
him?
someone read it?
Did somebody read it?
Yeah, part of it. Just give me a second to get up there. All right.
Okay? Testing. Can you hear me? My husband, can you hear me now?
Somebody that knows.
Does this work any better?
My husband, Pastor Terry Lumley, and I have lived in Smithville about 24 years. I have come to love this town with its uniqueness and friendliness. Mostly one neighbor helps the next. When I count my blessings every morning, I include living next to the trail, my mornings sipping coffee outside with my I call Snoopyville, my dog's play area. I look above at the trees, the birds, and enjoy the peacefulness. I can't afford vacations, but this quiet time with nature, my God and my beagle, is my getaway when I'm not working at the local personal care home. Lastly, I clean with vinegar water, cage-free eggs. At age 67, take only one pill, which is for my thyroid. I use air purifiers in my home and don't eat anything with more than a few ingredients. If this plant moves in, I will greatly greet for my peaceful, mostly healthy community. The company does not follow air quality standards. I have a few little things. I was thinking about the roads. The roads are collapsing, falling in. They just fixed it, and I pray every morning on my way to dialysis that it just holds out another day. They said that they'd bond the roads. Bond the roads. Yeah, trucks, all the noise. The trucks alone for years of building this place is going to be astronomically. They'll be running over our cats and our dogs and our children and our old folks who can't get out of the way. They're going to build a ball field. It just seems ironic. None of us can even climb up the hill to get to it. Transparency, 5 days before Christmas. Are you kidding me? I can't believe it. Transparency. That was the biggest one of all. Transparency. I'm getting sick.
Christine Dume. Thank you for the commanding spell.
Yes, my name is Christine Buman. I live at 701 Schaefer Avenue.
Does anybody know how to run? No, it's got to be on the record.
Okay, we're gonna try this again.
Spell your last name.
My last name is D-U-J-M-I-C. And try and get this to work for you guys. I did want to thank Commissioner Simula and Commissioner Roderick for returning my phone calls, or answering and then returning the message. I really do appreciate that. I did want to thank the company who's here today just to show your representation and to explain as much as you could or wanted to about everything you have. While I think one of the most interesting things is seeing the viewpoints from all the different areas. I know just from living and working in this area that there are places further than 350 feet that I think will be affected by this. But I'm just going to go forward with what I have to say. My family and I are residents of the township. To give you a little background on me, I assist my husband to sustain our family by working in the natural gas and energy field. It's a career and a company I'm grateful for, I'm very proud of, and I hope to retire from someday. I am a regular supporter of domestic energy, but not with this high impact issue, which is also long-term that we're facing today. I'm here to plead with our commissioners to vote against changing any residential zoning codes and against accepting an ordinance to allow industrial facilities in our township. is simply not suitable for this area because of the current structure of our community, our treasured greenway spaces, and the role we play as a trail town along the Great Allegheny Passage. If you didn't know, the Great Allegheny Passage, and if you guys just want to wait till the end, that's fine with me too, is the fourth largest rail trail in the entire country. It stretches 150 miles from Pittsburgh to Cumberland. Annual traffic on the trail has been documented at over 1 million users per year, which isn't surprising considering the hundreds of small businesses that are able to sustain themselves off of trail traffic.
Woo!
In 1978, the first piece of the gap was purchased by the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy from the Western Maryland Railroad. More parcels were purchased, including a stretch for the Montauk Trail Council that runs from Boston to Smithdale. Since the early 90s, trail volunteers worked countless hours in all types of weather to build, maintain, and manage the trail that people come from all over to use. I grew up on this trail, it was being built, and I'm not even from Elizabeth Township. I got to witness its completion, and it's a treasure that was worked so hard for. It's where I want my 4-year-old and my next child to also build their same memories. Our entire state is continually working to restore our natural resources. From mine reclamation to water quality improvement is taking place literally right in our backyards. It's common knowledge that $1 million of public, private, and grant funding is used for the research and correction of these historically affected areas just like ours. Allowing a power plant in any location near any of our greenways is a slap in the face. It's a huge setback for the organizations and individuals who have worked tirelessly to directly restore the natural quality of this area. Given our recreational and ecological opportunities, any outsider would easily conclude that nowhere in this township, not behind the commissioner's house, not on the other side of the hill, nowhere in the entire school district is a suitable location for industrial work. It had its moment in history, and that time is long, long gone. Right now, I want you guys, everybody up there, anybody here, take a moment and consider the 2 river valleys that surround the school district and compare them. It is not difficult to tell the difference. I am not against industry in any way, but there are other locations to establish it, and this is not it. Not the places that have come so far as the beloved and beautiful corridor along the Allegheny River in Elizabeth Township. Thank you.
McDonough, that's 349 Lincoln Hall Road, Elizabeth, PA 15037. Just a quick note, I would like to say to the professor that my colleague, former City Councilman Doug Shields, would disagree with some of your thoughts on Pittsburgh's willingness to open arms to all industrial uses, as he was instrumental as a city councilman to ban fracking, and that ban still exists in the city of Pittsburgh today. What I want to talk about tonight is Smithdale. Forgotten for decades, Smithdale has become the center of this debate. Tucked away along the Yawk sits this quiet community of hardworking people, some of which have called this town home for their entire lives. What we weren't anticipating was the diamond in the rough that the residents of Smithdale truly are. I've spent the last couple years getting to know the people and their stories, and each one of them is nothing short of inspiring and amazing. For
quite a few years now, while the rest of us were getting caught up in fighting with one another on social media and bolstering who was better or right, Smithville quietly observed, and they chose to strengthen the bonds between them instead. Unnoticed by the rest of us, they gathered regularly at their worn-down church as a community, greeted newcomers to our town along the Great Allegheny Passage, and took care of their own, and asked nothing of this community or from this board for themselves. If there was a problem, Clint or Dewey would take care of it. Not because they had the time to do it, but because Smithville understands the meaning of community much better than the rest of us. When their only access to this township collapsed, we allowed it to happen. When Johnny and Ray's house burned to the ground due to lack of water access and fire hydrants, we allowed it to happen. These things were allowed to happen, and they remain unresolved, even though some of these residents that you look down upon pay more taxes to this community than some of you. Tonight is not about a counterpoint. Tonight is about how much more we as a community are willing to let happen to these people.
Yes.
Tonight, the real question, tonight we decide if Elizabeth Township will continue to decide these matters based on the haves and the have-nots and the class lines that we all know secretly exist. The real question we have in front of us is, will we allow money to be more important than the people again? Will you make the choice to cite this development illegally with all of its many errors so that Smithville can shoulder the responsibility? Will you really let Smithville suffer to save your own asses from mistakes that they did not make? For decades, the only thing Smithville has asked of this community is a safe road, fire hydrants, and to not become the industrial dumping ground for the rest of us. Tonight, we owe them that.
I live at 156 Grouse, Grouse Drive, Elizabeth Township 15037. I come here tonight to speak to you as a member of this community for 43 years and a teacher for 37 years. I was appointed by this board to the Elizabeth Township Planning Commission as an alternate. When you appointed me to this particular board, you gave me an important role in shaping the future of this municipality. One of the duties of this position is to make decisions based on this community as a whole, and decisions based on what is good for everyone, not just some. This is a role that I take very seriously. I have to say that I am more than disappointed that as an appointed official to this board, I never saw a written recommendation for approval that came from our board and was never asked my opinion on this proposal by any of you. In the M1 Light Industrial Zone, it lists emergency medical facilities, indoor and outdoor recreation facilities, and even eating and drinking establishments as conditional uses. If these 147 acres are rezoned and we wanted to build a Wagner's restaurant, a court time, or a fire station on this property, we would be required to go through a conditional use public process. If we require a public process for these land uses, then why would any of you think it is a good idea to site a 20-acre power plant without the same public process? Why would a 20-acre power plant have less restrictions than any private development in Elizabeth Township? In today's Post-Gazette, Monroeville is advertising for the Maple Crest development, which will consist of 133 single-family residential units located on almost 72 acres. In my years on the Planning Commission, we have never addressed the development of a housing development, very rarely local business. Along with the Business and Economic Development Committee, our commissioners should have been discussing the direction our township is going in, along with the implementation of a comprehensive plan. Apparently, our commissioners have decided to industrialize all zones of our township. From the Center for Rural Pennsylvania report, in Pennsylvania, school districts collect their primary revenues from real estate taxes and earned income taxes. Combined, these two sources make up about 98% of school district locally derived revenues. Local earned income taxes are derived from the wages and salaries of local residents. Where are our homes? Why are we talking about a power plant? What direction is our township wanting to go in? The residents of Elizabeth Township elected you to represent them, not Invenergy from Chicago. If you vote for permitted use, you have given up all control to Invenergy. When discussing the power plant, we, the plan, were directed to Cheswick or Springdale as an example. Well, I found out it is located in an industrial zone on the former site of a decommissioned power plant. Also to Jessup. Jessup, recently built by Invenergy, was built as a conditional use on an existing industrial zone. Why are they asking Invenergy for permitted use in Elizabeth Township? This issue should be before the zoning commission. This is not a public utility. Our township will derive no power from this plant. 20 jobs or less. The residents of Elizabeth Township decide our zoning needs through a comprehensive plan led by and implemented through professional certified planners, not Mr. City. Mr. Misty gave examples of industrial uses, changes from industrial to business or housing or mixed use to the Frick or Hazelwood Green. Why would we be going from R1 and R3 to industrial? Are you proposing a power plant in Shadyside or Squirrel Hill? I find it interesting a report was written on December 19th from the plan. I have never seen a written report or summary from the plan. I would appreciate all monthly, already submitted and approved reports to the commissioners also be added to today's record. We have not had minutes for more than 1.5 years, and so I think that would be very important for us all to be able to read these submitted reports. I hope you take this into consideration tonight. I hope you understand how important this decision is and how this will affect the residents of this community for generations to come. I do not believe this is the way we should move forward. No vote should be taken tonight. You have a lot to think about. Your name should be
As I said at the beginning, please be respectful of the process. Please, again, it has nothing to do with what you're saying, honestly. It has to do with the fact that I let you go, I have to let everybody go. I understand. Yeah, again, I'm not trying to cut people off, but I have to, please be respectful.
You be respectful.
You get paid for it. Your decision.
Good evening. My name is Dwight Ferguson. I'm an attorney, and I'm here on behalf of Harry Ritter, Catherine Anderson. Sorry. Okay, I'll do better. They're at 2900 Schwerin Road. Emerson Dainty and Kathy Dainty, they're at 2774 Schwerin. Karen Harwell, her husband already spoke, at 1801 Weddell Road, and Robert and Carol Fussiger at 1667 Weddell Road, and Paul Blainer at 1631 Weddell Road. And I have a sense that maybe some other people here may agree with the position I'm taking here tonight. So in terms of the mechanics, that's 7 people who haven't spoken that I represent. That would be 40 minutes. I have no intention of taking 40 minutes. But if we're going to keep close score, you can take off my minutes in the following order. The first 5 were Harry Ritter, then Paul Blainer, then Robert Fassinger, then Carol, then Emerson Dainty, then Kathy Dainty, and then Catherine Anderson.
Yeah, we're not sharing this again, as I did with my.
I'm not sharing them.
No.
I'm representing these people. If you want me to say this 5 minutes, you can Mr. Anderson, sit down, say my next 5 minutes, and coming back, and I'll do that.
I mean, you're trying to implement a policy that was either incorrectly drafted, it doesn't apply to public hearings at all.
Certainly does.
And most people here tonight have not spoken for 5 minutes anyway.
So, Mr. Ferguson,
You're taking my time.
All public comment.
Stop interrupting his
It does apply to all.
And this is I'm sorry?
It does apply to all.
Then it should have been drafted that way.
It is drafted that way if you read the policy.
I actually have it in my hand.
And this is
a public hearing. This is a public
Yeah,
comment.
so if you look at public comment, which deals with anything, anybody addressing the board, as it says in one, and then, no, don't take your time.
But this
And
is
then
a
you move
public
down
comment.
to, that's fine.
That's the first
You can
mistake.
disagree with me, but I'm pretty sure that it applies here to this policy.
Well, I'm not sure where, we're taking up 5 minutes having this discussion. As I said, do you really want me to sit down and then when you call the next person, I stand up and say I'm speaking for them?
Well, how many people are you representing?
7 that have not spoken.
Well, then, if you want to designate the time for each person, I will let you do that.
Okay, and I've already done that, and I've given you the order in which I intend to do that, but I'm never going to go that long. Okay, you and I stop talking. Okay, all right, thank you. So, notwithstanding that discussion, I have nothing but respect for Mr. Rakunas and Mr. Sig and those who are here tonight. You know, this is a time where this could be an environment in which we can display civil discourse even though we disagree, and I respect the people who have spoken here tonight, who I think for the most part, there's a lot of passion here on all sides, and I think they tried their best to speak respectfully and to not make any type of personal attacks, and I intend to do that. Ultimately, the council has the opportunity to vote on this tonight as they indicated that they intended to do, but ultimately it's probably going to be important that if this matter is passed or rejected, it could ultimately decide this. And so my role here as a lawyer, I'm not here to testify, but rather to discuss with the council the legal principles that I think should be taken into consideration with regard to the matter which is before you tonight. Part of my premise is that I have looked through 1 year of commissioners' meeting minutes, and there's nothing in 1 year preceding this night of commissioners' meeting minutes that indicates that the commissioners have studied anything at all, hired anybody, design professionals, engineers, geotechnical experts, environmentalists. There are no meetings at which a discussion about this has previously occurred, which information could have been provided, or the council could have hired someone to do a report to advise them with regard to the matters that are before you tonight. So the entire consideration of whether to rezone these 147 acres is based upon information that began at 5 o'clock this evening, and nothing further. And so with that, it's my belief and my legal opinion that the courts require more than just a 1 hour or less presentation by the applicant. And so if you were to vote on this tonight, it's our position that there are 2 violations of the Pennsylvania Constitution that would occur. The first is under Article 1, Section 27 of the Pennsylvania Constitution, the Environmental Rights Amendment. That provision of our Constitution says that the people have a right to clean air, pure water, and to the preservation of the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of the environment. And I was particularly touched by Mr. and Mrs. Bell and Harry Ritter's one of my clients who have farms. Those large rectangular pieces that you saw throughout history, which is actually where the plant is proposed to be built, those are agricultural fields. They go back from the 30s, according to the pictures that have been provided to you. So under this constitutional provision, that gives my clients and your constituents rights, including limitations on the township's power to act contrary to those constitutional rights. Now, I'm not telling you that there are historical, aesthetic, environmental, special conditions, but the fact is, you don't know because you haven't explored it since 5 o'clock today. And if you don't explore it, then you can't be doing your fiduciary responsibility under the Constitution that you have to these people to make sure that that these resources of Elizabeth Township, which are considered to be in trust, of which you are the trustees, are being treated in a responsible fashion. So that's the first constitutional issue. The proposed map and the text change is precisely the kind of mischief that this environmental rights amendment was intended to prevent. It's just passing things like this without actually doing any study from an independent third party to advise you. The second constitutional provision is Article 3, Section 32 of the Pennsylvania Constitution. And that says that the General Assembly shall pass no local or special law in any case which has been or can be provided for by general law. And special legislation is unconstitutional if it creates a classification through artificial or irrelevant distinction. And the Pennsylvania, okay, now I'm on to Paul Blank. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court in Robinson and in other cases said that the whole point of that provision is to restrain state and local legislatures from granting, special privileges or treatment to select industries, groups, or individuals which do not serve to promote the general welfare of the public. Maybe this does serve to promote the general welfare of the public, but you don't know because you haven't studied. The minutes reflect that no such studies have occurred. There are 3 statutory violations that would occur if you pass this tonight, as you have informed the public that you intend to do. The first is ignoring a statutory mandate to concurrently amend the township comprehensive plan. If a municipality amends its zoning ordinance in a manner that is not generally consistent with its comprehensive plan, the statute says it shall concurrently amend its comprehensive plan in accordance with Article 3 of the Municipalities Planning Code. Concurrent means now. You don't make the plan after you've rezoned, and that would be violating the statute. So the question is whether or not the comprehensive plan is inconsistent with the proposed rezoning, and the answer is yes. The proposed changes are inconsistent with the township's comprehensive plan of 2003. It's been a really long time since the commissioners have revisited the comprehensive plan to make sure that these types of significant rezonings are consistent with the direction that the commissioners wish the municipality to go. The proposed rezoned area is in a low-density development area, as shown on the future land use map. And these are areas, according to your plan, that have either physical limitations or are in areas where development is not practical. They're also inconsistent with the county's comprehensive plan, which is called Allegheny Places, for a few reasons. One is that the Allegheny River Trail is part of the Great Allegheny Passage. There's been a lot of talk about that. Allegheny Greenprint lands identified by the applicant are high-value conservation lands, part of the rezoning, and potential conservation and infill development, all identified by the county as areas inconsistent with county and local comprehensive planning. So if you don't plan to vote tonight to concurrently amend your comprehensive plan, you would be violating that provision of the municipality's planning code. Second, it violates the municipality planning code's ordinance requirements of section 603. Here are some of the requirements of the municipality's planning code with regard to the ordinance that you intend to vote upon. One is it says, quote, zoning ordinances should reflect the policy goals of the Statement of Community Development Objectives and give consideration to the character of the municipality, the needs of the citizens, and the suitabilities and special nature of the particular parts of the municipality. So unless you've done that since 5 o'clock today, it's hard to comply with that. The municipality planning code requires that zoning ordinances shall protect prime agricultural land. Zoning ordinances shall provide for the protection of natural and historic features and resources, and zoning ordinances shall encourage continuity, development, and viability of agricultural operations. And This would be about 147 acres. That is almost all woodlands that would be turned into manufacturing or power plant use. Where zoning districts are created, all provisions shall be uniform for each class of uses or structures within each district. So what that means is that where you already have an existing zoning district, as you do here, that the type of regulation of those uses has to be consistent with the way that you regulate other uses. So if we look at the current M1 zoning district, the principal uses, just summarizing, are a class of uses that are significantly less impactful. And the conditional uses are certainly the most impactful uses. So as was previously stated, you would be violating the municipality's planning code to take a most impactful use and give it the least amount of scrutiny. The municipality's planning code doesn't permit that. Who am I on now? Yes. I'm on Robert Classic. Thank you. There was also a veiled threat tonight to the council that if this wasn't passed, a validity challenge could be raised against your ordinance because you don't permit a power plant use throughout anywhere in the municipality. That's not true, because in the M1 district, there is a principal use by special exception called comparable uses not specifically listed. And this council was smart enough to put that catch-all phrase in there so that you couldn't be sued for not providing for everything. You have provided a process that if you haven't thought of everything that anyone will ever invent, your ordinance isn't automatically unconstitutional because you have a catch-all phrase already in the ordinance. So that's really not a valid threat if it was intended to be. All right. So also in terms of the uses and zoning and creating an approval process that is consistent with similar uses in the M1 district, you're supposed to look at the purpose of the district. And now the purpose says of the M1 district is to encourage the continuation and revitalization of general industrial uses in those areas of the township which have already been established for these uses. So it would be inconsistent with that purpose to take forests and turn them into M1 districts, because that is not the continuation or revitalization of general industrial uses in areas where you already have that use. Finally, there are violations of the common law. This is spot zoning. But you say, you can't possibly have spot zoning with such a big parcel. Well, there's a case called Baker versus Chartiers Township, Commonwealth Court, 1996. It involved 221 acres that was to be rezoned from agricultural to industrial to expand a landfill. And in that case, the court was very clear that it isn't about the size of the area being rezoned. A specific area of land without regard to the relationship of those land use controls to the overall plan and general welfare of the community is spot zoning. Spot zoning is more than a small island of discriminatory zoning. The land area involved being only one of the determining factors. Rather, the key point is when a municipal governing body puts on blinders and confines its vision to just one isolated place or problem within the community, disregarding a community-wide perspective, that body is not engaged in lawful zoning, which necessarily requires that the picture of the whole community be kept in mind while dividing into compatibly related zones by ordinance enactments. In other words, legislating as to a spot is the antithesis of zoning. Last, I think, is that the proposed zoning changes do not reflect a rational zoning plan. The proposed area to be changed has been zoned residential and or agricultural for many years. People who reside there, as they have told you, use the land as residential and agricultural, and they relied upon that for decades in making investments, in raising their families there, and in purchasing property more recently, and the protections afforded by those zoning districts. It's only this is something I think was somewhat misleading. It's only a very, very small portion of the 147 acres that's ever been used for coal mining. According to the applicant's report, that use ceased in the 1970s, almost 50 years ago. And if we look at the Benoni image that was shown for 1977, that was 42 years ago. That's when I graduated from high school. That's how old that is. And I was never privileged to be Professor Mystic's student, but if I had written on an exam that there was what he's calling a non-conforming use that hadn't operated for 45 years, I was making a great point. All right, Carol Cassidy. If I had said that you could, in this community, if you could reassert 45, 50 years, even 2 years later, that an abandoned industrial use is still a non-conforming use, I would deserve to flunk the course. Because in your ordinance, under non-conforming uses, it says this: when a non-conforming use of a structure and or a lot is discontinued or abandoned for 12 consecutive months, the structure and or the lot shall not thereafter be used except in conformance with the regulations of the zoning ordinance in which the district is, in which the use is located. So, unless someone's been coal mining or actively using that site in the last 12 months, then there is no non-conforming use to build on. The obligation under the ordinance is to build in accordance with the regulation. We hope that this isn't just rezoning for expediency. We want it to be about the application of well-considered planning concepts, or regard for the Constitution or statutory requirements and the limitations of zoning, not about future bargains. I understand that there is no benefits contract in place, but of course, the applicant testified they don't even know where they're going to put it on this site. That's subject to change. They haven't designed it. They probably haven't done the geotechnical work that would be necessary to inform them as to the best location on the site. So of course they haven't promised you any benefits yet, but they haven't promised you not to promise you benefits. And I think that unless someone has had their ears plugged up, municipal officials here have made it pretty clear that this is the answer to our sewer problems and our road problems. So at least some balloons were floated out there. Those are not zoning considerations. Those are not proper zoning considerations. The Commonwealth Court said just last year, we don't dispute that one of the primary tasks of a municipality is to improve its finances, but this court has consistently held that tax-based concerns cannot be decisive in a zoning case. About rational planning principles, we don't believe that we comply with law. So thank you very much for letting me indulge. I think that's all that I thank you, Mr.
Talk into the microphone.
That's why I didn't do it. I wanted to talk to you. Angel Purek, Scenery Drive 255. You know, they have a waste dump in this township, and there was a potential for a jail to handle 150 people. I don't know hardly any of these people, I've never seen them at our meetings fighting over that. And I just, it amazes me. And I want to commend Ms. Bekowitz and Mr. Simolo. They took the time and trouble to stop the jail. Having said that,
Talk into the microphone.
let me speak.
I can't get in the mic.
Can't hear you.
Okay. For the people that don't know, there's 5 of these plants in Oakland and downtown Pittsburgh. Some of them are small, I agree, but they're on 3 campuses on Carnegie Mellon campus, Duquesne University, and Carnegie Mellon, and over on the community college on the north side. They have emissions, they have supposedly noise, but I don't know if anybody has anything ever been said about this. Now they're going to build, for their information, they're going to put 3 more in the Oakland area. And I just found out there's one on the campus of Indiana College in Pennsylvania. And nobody says anything. And if you're against emissions and pollution and sound decibels and that, if you have kids in any of those schools, you should pull them out if we're going to serious. And as far as junkyards, calling us a junkyard, I don't disagree. But there's one on the trail that they talk about so beautiful. It's run by the Trail Commission. Do they have a permit? I don't know. Can anybody answer that? Does anybody know about that one down by the Vermont Cemetery? The other thing I want to tell you, they have all kinds of trash down there, equipment and trailers. Tenasco is a power plant up on 31 and 70 up on the hill. They gave that township $25 million. And there's no reason why we can't negotiate with this company to get some money, to get things happening in this township. Because the way it's going right now, there's nothing happening, this township is dying. I live on Route 48, and you want to talk about emissions and noise? Go down there and live. Nobody says anything about that. You chose it. I also believe this should be a no-brainer for this group of people up front here. This should be a unanimous vote for this fire plant. We have a situation here where the jail was wagging the dog, and you got to think about 14,000 people. And I can tell you from the people I talk, they don't have the nerve or anything to come up here and speak. So I'm speaking for a lot of people too. And I can tell you there's probably more people for this plan than there are against it. All the people against it are here tonight. But this group of commissioners, they represent 14,000 people in this township. And this site is not another Yellowstone National Park.
It's our neighborhood. It's my neighborhood.
Be respectful of the floor for everybody. Okay, thanks. We're against everybody.
There's no impact on the river or on the trail or anything. And I have a lot more to say, but I want to say one thing. I mentioned this to this young fellow here.
You'll get your
I
paycheck.
have anything against them. They're eco-terrorists. They come in and community. In California, they had a fire that burned up 11,000 homes. They're up to $10 or $11 billion in expenses. And the reason for it is there were people like him. He's probably a nice guy, but the reason for it is they did not call the forest. They didn't take out the dead trees anymore. They didn't take the branches and everything. I've been in California, Oregon, and Washington. They decimated the lumber industry, and this is what kind of situation you have when outsiders like that come in here, and we don't need that. You need this green. Who's going to
We've been going for about 3 hours, so we're going to take a 5-minute recess.
listen to that one almost every 2 weeks.